Hello and welcome to another update video about Cardano. In this video, we want to take a look at the Cardano chart, and we want to first look at, are we still in an uptrend? And then after that, we take a look at the lower term time frames, and we want to take a look there about, at some resistance and support levels, and we're going to take a look at what could potentially happen next. Now, let's first establish, are we still in an uptrend? And what we can see here on this chart here is, first of all, the 20, the 50 and the 200 period moving average. And we can see that we are comfortably above all three of them, which indicates we are in an uptrend. Also, what we can see here is the Downtrend channel. You can see the upper and the lower band, as well as the middle average of the Downtrend channel. And what we can see, the Downtrend channel is a trend indicator. Obviously, in the last few weeks, we can see that we pushed the Downtrend channel further up. By the way, if you want to know more about all these indicators, you can find a link in the description that will take you to my second channel on which I teach technical analysis, and there you can find all the details that you need to know about these indicators that I'm using here. But as you can see, we were pushing it up in the last few weeks, this Downtrend channel, which indicates we were in an uptrend, and now obviously we've dropped with that huge candle here. We pretty much exactly, and that is, like magic, we touched that middle line of the Downtrend channel, bounced off that, and we are now back up here. If you are in that upper half of the Downtrend channel, you would normally not exit a trade. I mean, this is the weekly basis, but the upper half normally tells us that we are still in an uptrend. We are in a strong uptrend when we push this Downtrend channel further up, and that has happened in the last few weeks. However, you can see that the trend was, increasing in strength here, where we had bigger candles from week to week, and then we were slowing down, and we talked about that on this channel, that we were losing momentum. I was getting a bit concerned. I think in the end I got a bit more bullish, but that dump surprised me as well. But we were losing momentum again, and we can clearly see that here now. But we bounced off this middle line, which is great. Let's take a look at the MACD. The MACD is still looking very bullish. We are deep in the green here. The MACD line is comfortably above the orange indicator line there. So that is good from a longer term time frame. And also here on the RSI just shows that we are moving out of overbought territory again. Now on the weekly, what we can see is something like a bearish divergence, you could call it, even though prices were going up. And you can clearly see that here we've had one high, another higher high, and another higher high. We can see that bearish divergence, which indicates that we make lower highs on the RSI, which is just objectively just telling us that we are losing momentum on a weekly time frame, very clearly, if we like to hear it or not. And then on the ADX, what we can see, the ADX, the white line here, just tells us, are we in a trend or not? And we can see that actually from the beginning of the year, we have lost in trend strength, and we actually now not, from an ADX point of view, we are not in a strong trend anymore, only a weak trend, and we are still in a sort of uptrend, which is why the green line is higher than is above the red line. If that changes, that indicates a potential reversal. Now what happened, when we had the green line crossing the red line on the weekly, you can see here what happened. We made some nice gains. So we are not there yet, but we need to make sure that we are aware, that something could happen when that red line will cross above the green line. So we will keep our eyes on that, guys, because that could indicate a reversal of the trend on the weekly. So we just need to be aware of that. Let's take a look at the daily, and let's take a little bit more let's take a look at more detail. And here we can see that on the daily, it looks like that we are getting out of this trend. So we are sort of getting into something like a slight downtrend. And what we can see, that we've been pushing here this Downtrend channel to the upside. And normally when you have two touches that push the Downtrend channel to the upside, you would enter a trade. If you trade a trend trading strategy and you enter the Downtrend channel, enter the Downtrend channel strategy, by the way, you would have then probably entered the trend. Had you purely used the Downtrend channel, you would probably enter the trade at around the 10th of August here, and you would have probably made some nice gains up here all the way up. Until then, you would have moved below that middle line, which was here. So you would have exited the trend at around 250, whereas you would have entered the trade at around 156, would have stayed all the way in the trend, in the trade here, and then exited here potentially. You would then re-enter the trend as soon as we push back above that middle line and move the downtrend channel to the upside, which wouldn't happen now before we actually get above the 310. But that's only one indicator, guys, only one indicator. And we can see that we are above the 50 and the 200-day moving average. We're below the 20-day moving average, which is slight reason for concern. Let's take a look at the MACD. MACD is showing red. Unfortunately, we've made a bearish cross here on the MACD. That, you know, sort of pre-warned us that something could have happened here. That was on the 31st of August. We saw that red cross, and it just showed that the trend was slowing down, and then now we actually saw that playing out. On the ADX, on the RSI, we can see something similar, that it just confirms that price drop. Not necessarily, in my opinion, a bearish divergence. We saw that bearish divergence here when we talked about that on this channel when prices were going up, but we saw actually lower highs. Now that is not technically a bearish divergence anymore, because the prices are now going down as well. So it's pretty much just confirming that we are sort of in a downtrend on the daily, I would say. And yes, we are in a downtrend, and it's not only the downtrend channel that confirms that. It's not only the 20-day moving average that confirms that. It's also the ADX which confirms that, because the white line is above 25, which means we are in a trend. But because the red line has crossed above the green line, it means that we're now in a downtrend technically on the daily. It's just something we need to be aware of, guys. And I said before, I think yesterday in the video, I said that it doesn't mean that this drop is over yet, right? So it's just something that we need to be aware of. It doesn't mean that we now need to drop. It's just something that we need to be aware of. Of course, we want to see these positive signals that, for example, we get above the 20-day moving average, which is now at around 275. We want to see a green cross on the MACD again, and you know, we want to see that green line crossing the red line again on the ADX. So these are the things that we really need to be aware of and need to take a look at, and really to push that downtrend channel further up. We really need to get above 310. If we get below $2, then we will push the downtrend channel down, and that would be the first time since end of July or middle of July, and that would be quite a negative sign. Luckily, that hasn't actually happened. On the daily, we bounced off that $2 here, which was the lower line of the lower band of the daily downtrend channel. Let's go to the 4-hour chart now. So we are now on the 4-hour chart, and what we can see here is a very similar situation that we have on the daily. We are below the 50 period moving average on the 4-hour chart, also just in the area with the 20 period moving average, but we're above the 200 period moving average on the 4-hour chart. We pushed the downtrend channel down very recently, down to $2. We are now above that middle line again, but we are far away from the top. Sort of shows a bit of uncertainty, and that is reflected by the MACD, which is actually, you know, showing us a green histogram. However, actually the MACD is below the 0 line, so it's not great, and also it shows the RSI below 50, so rather bearish. And we can see that while we are in a trend, we are actually in a downtrend according to the ADX technically. So all of that basically confirms that we are sort of in a downtrend, even though we see that recovery here at the moment, which is on the 4-hour chart, however, at the moment quite weak actually compared to that strong downtrend that we saw. Looks like that we are rather a little bit bearish, you know, here on the 4-hour chart. Let's take a look at the 1-hour chart, where we can see pretty much, unfortunately, a similar situation, because we already pushed here today actually that downtrend channel to the upside again, but only one touch. As I said before, you need 2 touches normally to enter a trade. This was only 1 touch, and we are now above that middle line again, so we could bounce off here and try to get another attempt to up to 260. That middle line here is at 250 now, so we could bounce off that and get back to 260. That could really happen. The MACD, however, is red as well. The histogram, we are again below 50 here on the RSI, which isn't great. And again here, technically we are in a downtrend, a weak downtrend on the hourly. So overall, I must say the weekly chart looks best of all of these. So the longer term perspective looks really still good, still bullish. Whereas, to be honest, the daily, the 4-hour and the 1-hour chart technically don't look great. And this is just something that, you know, just is there. So all these indicators don't look great. We just need to acknowledge that, unfortunately. I would love to tell you something else, but it's actually what it is. I mean, we see that we're making higher highs here on the hourly, which is a good sign, but we can't see that bullish momentum yet. So I think we need to continue. We would need to continue that. We need to get above these levels at, 255, 263 here is another resistance level, so that we bounced off today actually. So we are now sort of trading here between the 220 that I highlighted in one of the last videos, 220 and 263 at the moment. Yeah, what we can see as well is we've got a bit here on the hourly, got a bit of an upward moving trend line here at the moment, so we don't seem to break that at the moment. So I just said could be that we bounce off this middle line of the Downtrend channel, which coincides very well with that trend line now. So it could really be we move up to the 263 potentially in this ascending triangle here, and that could be help us then to really get into that apex here of that triangle and to push higher hopefully, and that will then hopefully also have a positive effect on these momentum indicators and the trend indicators, which could then again be a buy signal for some people. So that would be rather bullish then. Really a lot of uncertainty in the market, guys. What I can only tell you, watch these levels of 255, 245. That is the next, obviously, if we break below 245, we can go back to 220 in my opinion. If we get above 256, next what we address is 263 again, and then we can go all the way up to 270, which would be great. And from there we can go to 280 again, and then we're really in nice territory again. But at the moment it is hard. We are climbing our way up on the hourly, but technically what I want to tell you is the indicators are still sort of bearish. I don't see that clear buy signal that I wanted to see. If I was day trading, I wouldn't enter a trade right at this moment. I would wait for a breakout, for example, that we see these the Downtrend channel with two touches to be pushed up, for example, or that we can see a clear breakout above the 263 that could then allow us to move to 270, and at that point we might see some of these indicators move more into the green. What I just want to communicate here, guys, be a bit careful. There's a lot of uncertainty still in the market. No clear direction can be predicted here. But we need to watch these levels, 245, 255, 263 at the moment on the hourly. The weekly still looks good, yeah, but the other ones are looking rather, not so great, I would say, not so great. What we shouldn't forget is that on the 12th, we've got something really fundamentally changing. So from a fundamental point of view, I still think it's a good time to buy now. That's why I'm buying, not financial advice, but I buy these dips. But I did say yesterday in the video, it doesn't mean that it needs to be over yet. So we could drop again, for example, down to 220, maybe even down to $2. This is certainly not something that's impossible. And I just try to be realistic here, guys. And we had a look at all these indicators, and they all pretty much tell the same story at the moment. So what I just, in summary, we just need to climb our way up here on this trend line. If we see that trend line breaking, unfortunately, then yeah, that could indicate a further move to the downside, because then we also move below that middle line on the Downtrend channel on the hourly chart, and that could push us further down. All right, watch these levels, guys. I hope you liked this update. If you did, please smash the like button, and if you want to follow me on this crypto journey, please subscribe. Thanks a lot for watching, and see you in the next video. Bye.